I'm Mary Kay, and welcome to Healthy Ways of Cooking. And I emphasize healthy ways of cooking because fruits and vegetables are where it's at. So remember this, healthy habits are in your kitchen, not in your medicine cabinet. So let healthy foods be your medicine and your medicine healthy foods. So there's my little mini lecture today. So today I am featuring baked ham with side dishes, healthy side dishes of healthier mashed potatoes, steamed broccoli, and glazed carrots. And let me give you a quick view. This is a very small ham that I baked. It's just for my husband and myself, garnished with rosemary and sage. Simple steamed broccoli, and I'll be talking more about the side dishes, and glazed carrots. And I chose glazed carrots because I figured the kids would especially like that. Okay, so I'll start with talking about the ham because everybody wants to know about the ham. That's the centerpiece, and it is the starring role. So how to prepare ham? Since most hams that you buy are already pre-cooked, that is a real, lifesaver in the kitchens, because all you have to do is heat it up and apply a little simple glaze as well. You don't have to glaze them, but most people want to. Use pineapple juice. Buy a can of chunky pineapple, not in the big pieces. These are pineapple chunks, and you could drain off the pineapple juice. Add brown sugar to it and cook it so that it thickens up. A little bit of butter, and that would create the glaze. So to prepare ham, you would score it, which you might have seen a little bit of that. I'll show a close-up of that. You want to score it in little squares across the top of the ham so that when you glaze it, it will go into the ham itself and the internal ham. And you don't want to go much further when you're scoring it with a knife than a quarter to a half-inch deep. You don't want to be cutting into the meat. And then you're going to apply a glaze just before you bake it, and then throughout the baking process, every 10-15 minutes, you're going to put brush glaze over the ham again. So the next question is, well, how long do you bake a ham? Most people are buying anywhere from 7 to 9 pounds for a family. So it's pretty standard, 15 minutes per pound at 325, and the oven is 325. And figure on for how much a person, 3/4 if it's bone-in ham to a half a pound of ham per person if it's not bone-in. And then lastly, of course, and most importantly, how do you know when a ham is cooked? Well, again, because the ham is pre-cooked, a lot of that is already, the work is done for you. So you just need to, for approximately 7 to 9 pound ham, you'd be somewhere around 2 hours with glazing every 15-20 minutes. And then at the end, you'll use a meat thermometer if you have one, and you want to make sure that the internal temperature is 140 degrees. So that's when you know the ham is cooked. You want it for safety purposes, all meats. It's really important to use a meat thermometer to check the internal temperature. So I want to show you a little close-up again, if I can, how this ham is scored. You can see that it's got like squares on it. So that's all you have to do. You don't have to make it, if you want to make a diamond shape pattern, which a lot of the recipes talk about, sure, go ahead. I just stuck to a square pattern, as I think this one was already kind of pre-cut when I bought it. This ham is only about 2.7 pounds, so I only had to bake it 45 minutes. So that tells you, it's all 15 minutes per pound. And then take it out and let it sit at room temperature. Now, before you cut it, what I forgot to say was I noticed this in a couple of recipes. Before you bake your ham, some of them advocated taking the ham out of the refrigerator and bringing it to room temperature a couple of hours before you put it in the oven. And apparently that helps really bake it evenly throughout so that you don't have it really cold inside and, you know, maybe warmer outside. So take it out of your refrigerator a couple hours before you plan to put it in the oven, or an hour, something like that, depending on how warm your house is. And then once you cook it, you want to let it sit, you know, maybe half an hour before you slice it. It just makes it easier to get a good thickness of the slices themselves. I think what I'll do, since I already started the mashed potatoes, let's jump into healthier mashed potatoes. Now, we all know mostly what you think of is mashed potatoes are full of butter and other fats like whole milk and buttermilk, and it's what makes it delicious. After all, it is December, it's cold outside, and we crave comfort food. So mashed potatoes is where it's at. Now, I love roasted potatoes, but I thought with the ham, mashed potatoes would be, and especially for the holidays, it's nice to have those and, you know, indulge once in a while. So the recipe for healthier mashed potatoes is, if you can get Yukon Gold potatoes, they're the creamier potatoes, and you could tell because they're golden color versus, I disappeared to get my bag of potato. So you can see this. I don't have a russet with me, but you can see this Yukon Gold is a lighter than the russet. The russets tend to be longer and they're going to be darker in color, and they're fine. Russets are great for making mashed potatoes. So you want to use Yukon Gold, russet, or Idaho. I saw all three at Acme when I was shopping there. Low-fat milk, that's what I'm going to use in the recipe. Low-fat sour cream, which gives it that creaminess without going over the top with full fat. You can add a little bit of butter, but I'm going to use a little bit of low-sodium chicken broth to give it a little bit of interest. So I want to talk about the nutrition aspect of the potatoes as well. They're high in vitamin C, actually more than one medium tomato. So potatoes, while they get a bad rap for being high in starch, and people tend to avoid them, like all fruit, or like all root vegetables, they tend to be, you know, they have their own good sources of vitamins and nutrients. So, you know, it's good to have them. So, and it's also higher than sweet potatoes. The sweet potatoes are also very good for you as well. Potatoes are high in fiber, 2 grams of fiber, which helps you make you feel full. It's good for your digestive system. Potassium, that's another important nutrition aspect of the potato. Higher than a banana, who knew? And we all like bananas. And if you, now there's the school of thought for mashed potatoes, skin on or skin off. I usually keep the skin on because that's where the nutrients are, and that's what I want to keep in my diet as much as possible. I don't skin my carrots, and I tend to leave the skin on the potatoes. But for this class, I decided, well, I'm going to go for consistency, and so I peel the skin. They also, potassium is very good for helping our muscles contract and maintain normal blood pressure. And it's also good in vitamin B6. So these are good things to know about the lowly potato that gets a bad rap. So here are some tips for your best mashed potatoes. First thing is cut in, if you can, consistently in the same size pieces. So for instance, and I'll move the ham here. I'll move it where the dog can't get to it because her nose is very sensitive right now. So if you could see me, I have it's a medium, not too small potato. Since it's not very large, I'm going to cut it in 4s. There you've got consistent pieces. If I cut these smaller than And then some others larger, then it would be cooking inconsistently. So again, in 4s, and you toss it in the pan and fill it with water. So you want to salt the water. It helps the water boil quicker, for one thing, but also imparts a little bit of the salt to the potatoes themselves. You don't have to worry about all that seasoning. Cook them in cold water so that, well, you don't want to start out with hot tap water. You want to start with cold water, and then you bring it all up together so that it cooks consistently. Drain well, too, once your potatoes are cooked. So these will cook anywhere from, depending on how many potatoes you use and how many pounds, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. You want to cook them until they're fork tender and almost falling apart, which makes it easier to mash. And when you drain your potatoes, make sure you drain them very well. Even let them sit in the colander over something so that all the water gets out, so that you don't impart water to your potatoes when you start to mash them. And for this recipe, I'm using the sour cream, milk, and the chicken broth at room temperature. You don't want to introduce cold to your hot potatoes. So you want to keep everything consistent temperature-wise. And here's a rule of thumb for cooking in general. Remember, it's always easy to add in terms of seasonings, and it's much harder to remove. So be very sparing when you're adding salt and other, herbs, for instance, or anything else to whatever you're cooking. That's just a good rule of thumb. So the recipe calls for the healthier mashed potato recipe, 8 to 10 medium russet potatoes, a quarter cup of sour cream at room temperature, a quarter cup of whole milk at room temperature, but I used lower fat milk, and a quarter cup to a half a cup of warm chicken stock. And this all depends on how you like the textures of your potatoes. Some people love them whipped until they're absolutely so smooth, and others like them a little bit lumpier. So it just all depends on your own preference. So you want to peel or not, rinse, and cut the potatoes, into 4 to 6 pieces, depending on their size. So for this medium size, I cut it into 4 pieces. If you've got a larger potato, then you're going to be cutting into 6 pieces, a longer, wider potato. You're going to place your potatoes in a saucepan and cover it with cold water, and then you're going to bring it to a boil, and then let it do a brisk simmer for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes again, and test with a fork for fork tender results, and then drain your potatoes thoroughly. Make sure there's no water left over. So here's the part where we're going to start to mash the potatoes. So here they are. I kept them warm in my colander on my distant stove here. I'm going to turn on the heat, and I am going to mash them with an old-fashioned potato masher. Now, some people have electric mixers or hand mixers, and you could use that. It's easier for some people. I steer clear of a food processor or anything like that. You can, probably in danger of overworking them. So when they're this soft, they're pretty easy to mash. I wish you could see closer. So I'm going to add a little bit of liquid just so they're not sticking to the bottom. You don't really want it on high. I've got it on medium heat. And then I'm going to start in with the potato masher. Now my potatoes probably could have cooked another 5 minutes. But as some of you might know, when you've got a number of other dishes going on, sometimes that doesn't always translate. I'm going to put all of that in there. Continue cooking. If you want to, add a little bit of butter, maybe not right now because it would burn. I'm going to add my milk, and I may need a little bit more, but I don't think so. This is probably going to do it. And what the remaining is sour cream, all at room temperature. Get a little spatula and get this out. What we're going to do is, since I need a little bit more liquid, I'm going to add it to the sour cream so I can get every bit of that. Don't want to waste the sour cream. You could use, for healthy, even a healthier alternative to sour cream, you could use plain full fat, or I'm sorry, plain Greek yogurt, which is very high in protein, and it adds a little tang. I'm going to keep my heat on low. Now, I have found, cooking over the years, that you don't have to follow recipes verbatim. If you find something, it isn't working exactly what they called for, and yes, this is cold, I need a little bit more liquid, so I'm going to, since I'm over a heat source, add a little bit more. And again, add a little, not a lot, because you can't take out. You can always keep doing your additions. I'm not even going to use, I thought I was going to be using the whisk, but I like my potatoes a little thicker than really thin. Some people like it very thin. They would add more milk to it, or perhaps more sour cream. Okay. Here's my bowl. And don't forget to turn your burner on. You could garnish. Now mine, as you can see, is a little on the thicker side, but this is the way I like them. My husband and I like them this way. And you know what? It's not a sin to add just a little bit of butter. Not a lot. You're not putting a half a stick or a stick in it like some recipes call for. Just going to put a little dab right on top. And finish off with a little pepper. You want to taste it and see if it needs salt. So there's your mashed potatoes. That nothing like melted butter on mashed potatoes. Pure comfort food. So I want to talk about, now I know everybody would disagree how thick these potatoes are. And again, if you want to make them thinner and more whipped, and if you've got a hand mixer or an electric hand mixer, that would really do the trick for it. So once you're going to add your milk, sour cream, and beat with electric mixer on low, progressively moving on to a medium-high speed. This is for very much a whipped potato effect, until the potatoes are completely reduced to a pure, like a puree, like pureed carrots. Now I do love pureed carrots, but I just don't like my potatoes that way. All right, so here we are. So you got, I want to bring my hand back. we just can't leave this ham out of the picture. But, all right, so moving on to the broccoli side dish. Now, hopefully kids like it. They tend to, I remember when I used to work with the kids, they always named carrots that they like for vegetable and also broccoli. So I chose a very simple broccoli side dish. You will know how green this is. I chose to steam my broccoli. And, well, I'll say no more. I'll get right into it. So let me talk about the nutrition of broccoli. Again, it's all your fruits and vegetables are high in fiber. So broccoli is, for 1 cup of broccoli, it's 2.3 grams of fiber. Now this really stays with you. Protein. Now here you wouldn't think protein. Protein actually exists in some of our vegetables. 1 cup has 3 grams of protein. That's similar to asparagus, which I did not know, and potatoes. Another good word for potatoes, protein, and vitamin C. Broccoli is definitely known for having a high percentage of vitamin C, pretty much 70% of your daily intake. So the best way to get your full nutritional value of broccoli, one of the things, especially as we were all growing up as kids, broccoli was often overcooked, like some other green vegetables, overcooked to where it was so limp and it was a dull green and unappetizing. And maybe that's why people didn't like it. So steaming, you really only need to steam 3 to 5 minutes, but I really, if it's 3 minutes is crunchy. If you like it crunchy, great. But if you want a little bit more fork tender, you want to steam it about 5 minutes. And also keep an eye on it, because the way you know you're doing it is right is your broccoli is bright green like this broccoli is. And in doing so, you're also retaining your vitamins and minerals contained in the broccoli. If you immerse them in water and just cook them for 20 minutes, it's all done. You don't have any value left for your broccoli. So for the steamed broccoli recipe, it calls for however much you want to do, but this one is 1.5 pounds, approximately 2 large heads. So to steam the broccoli, once you get your broccoli cut, and I also want to show you, that was one thing I did forget to show you. I cut the broccoli with a little bit of stem added to it. So it's really nice and balanced and uniform. And it's not just the green tops. So here you have a full complement of your nutrition intact. So you're going to add, just enough water in the bottom of your pot, and use a steamer basket if you have one, and they're fairly inexpensive. Okay, if you don't have a steamer basket, then you just put 1/4 to maybe a 1/2 inch of water in here. It's really not much, and you can't see the pan, but it's just not much. And I would say 1/4 to 1/2 inch at most water. Put your broccoli in, put it on a high heat, let it boil again for maybe 3 to 5, and you're going to, especially immersed in water, you're going to keep a close eye on it and make sure, testing with a fork, that it's tender enough, but you don't want it overcooked. So 5 minutes max, and you will know by the bright green color. And I drizzled my broccoli with a tablespoon of olive oil. You can't really see that, but that's right. And also, what's good to do with broccoli, once you steam it for, your 5 minutes, take it out and drain it thoroughly, get all the water off. And then I like to add a little lemon juice for tartness. So I'm going to squeeze a little lemon juice here. A little bit of salt. And that's it. Well, you got kids in the house. You may want to add, some people will opt to put a little bit of butter on there, just a little bit, to enhance the flavor of it, and that the kids will love it that way. So a little bit of lemon juice. If you like lemon zest, you can add lemon zest, zesting the peel over it. That really adds a lot. And there you have it. It's just a quick dish, full of vitamins and minerals. They're not cooked out. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the last of the side dishes, which is glazed carrots. And I really think this is going to be a hit with everyone. This is such a great way to get in fruits and vegetables. Make them, you know, we're following the guidelines of nutrition and all the experts. We're just putting a taste to it. So for the carrots are loaded. I want to talk about the nutrition, of course. Carrots are loaded with fiber, vitamin K, beta carotene, and antioxidants. They are also thought to improve your vision, and they help to fight infection. So another way to work carrots into your diet is some people like to cut them up into, you know, thin strips and take a ranch dressing and dip a little bit, you know, like broccoli too, for that matter. But carrots, dip it into ranch dressing as a snack. It's another good way to work it in. But in this instance, for this recipe, I used a pound is 16 ounces of baby carrots, because there was no slicing involved. You can just take that pound bag and put it in the skillet. So what this recipe calls for is a pound of carrots, and I use the baby carrots, a half a cup of water, 1.5 tablespoons of butter, 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar, and a little bit of salt, not much. And you're going to put it in a skillet. Now, I have an old iron skillet that I've had for years and years and years. So this is what I cooked in. You might even see some flecks in there. It tends to come out browner. So you just put your carrots in the skillet with the water, the brown sugar, the butter, and you're going to heat it over medium heat until the butter starts to melt. And the reason you want to start with a medium heat is you don't want to burn the butter. So begin on medium heat, and when you see that butter melting, then turn your heat up high and cook it 6 to 8 minutes, I think it said, but it depends on the thickness of your carrots once again. So it says 8 to 10 here. I ended up cooking it 15 minutes because I wanted a little bit softer. And again, you want it fork tender. Take your fork and test it when it's in the skillet as it's cooking. So really, this is another time saver. You got maybe 15 minutes when said and done once you start your carrots to finish. But I haven't finished. So you want to cover and simmer on a fairly low simmer, but not too low, so that it keeps the heat going. And once they're cooked to your satisfaction with the fork test, you're going to you want to bring it back up to a higher heat and take the lid off. Cook it while the lid's off, so you let the liquid evaporate so that it cooks down to just the glaze, and keep stirring so that when you finish, and it shouldn't take much longer to do that, maybe 5 minutes longer. So that's when you just keep stirring it. Make sure that's all you have left is glaze. You don't want liquid running off of them. So glaze, and then when you put them in a bowl, it'll be dry, dry looking like this, but they're not dry. So once they're in the bowl, you can, coat it. You can season them with salt and pepper. I put a little bit of grated parsley, not grated, I'm sorry, chopped parsley, because I love parsley. So just a little bit I put on there. I love it. Now maybe, kids won't like that, so you don't need to. They'll eat it without the parsley. So with this delicious dinner, I think you'll really enjoy the ham. And so be well, enjoy your ham, and happy holidays.